neck issues. And like, sadly, Tito's not here today, but he can be a contestant for saying he had a newer spinal surgery. I can't even remember the name of it because it's so new. And when he fell and broke his spine, they went in and they removed C1 down to C5. And so they removed his vertebrae in his neck, and then they put like, it's almost kind of like mesh. It's like chicken wire. So they put mesh in there in kind of like a cylinder structure. And then they crushed up his vertebrae, and then they put those vertebrae back into there. So like the body would naturally want to put calcification over there, because if your bones are in the area, your body's going to kind of like know what to do. But now he just has like pretty much like a grate with a bunch of crushed up vertebrae in here with a bunch of displaced calcium. And before, when he came to us in, not Bonita, McKinney, Texas, yeah. He was taking the course out in McKinney, Texas. He was getting like really bad vertigo, crazy migraines. He would get dizzy spells all the time. And I did what? Like one demo on him, and it was just like night and day difference. And we've done some treatments to kind of continue cleaning that up. But even with something like that, it's been a certain amount of time. It's been, I think, like 2 years since the surgery. I know that like I'm not really going to cause any damage because I'm working to what the client can tolerate, but I'm going in and I'm taking down the bands and strands that had to mat over top of that mesh that's in there now, because it was just such thick matting. And so for the direction that we're going to be covering today is going to be from C7, T1, T2 area, because I do want you to touch on it when we're opening up that origin, because sometimes those can be a little fused and irritating this upper back area, especially if you see that dowager's hump. That dowager's hump is going to be that hump on the back of the neck. There's some exercises on the last day that I'm going to show you how to like help get rid of that, but also you need to do the non-surgical to break down that scar tissue. So that's going to be the origin. And it doesn't really matter. You could start the treatment on the floor because we finish on the floor normally, but I normally want to get the chair out of the way. So I kind of just start on the chair and then we go to the floor, because I always find I get into the neck a little bit better on the floor. So I'm going to start, we have origin and insertion. The origin is going to be C7, T1, T2 area. And then the insertion, we just kind of drag our finger, and you can do it even to your skull. Drag your finger up the back and to where you feel like that ledge of the skull. You're feeling your base. And then kind of come towards the middle and bring your neck back a little bit, and you're going to feel some soft tissue right there. And that's going to be where C1 is entering that brainstem insertion. And then generally, if you come to the sides, you're going to feel these two little bumps right here on either side. Those are your occipital condyles. And we call them your occipital eyes because if I kind of shot right through here to the back side of my skull, it would be where my occipital condyles are. And so by working the C1 and the occipital condyles, you're going to help people who get like really bad brain fog, who get vertigo, who get like dizzy spells. And it actually, I've done this treatment on a bunch of people, and afterwards they're like, wow, like I see a little bit more vividly, like colors are brighter, their eyesight can be really affected by this. So really great area to focus. So I'm going to touch on origin, C7, T1, T2 area. I'm going to work my way up to the insertion, C1 occipital condyles. And then after I touch on that, then I can begin with the neck. The neck is similar to the spine. I just don't want you crossing over it and jumping over it too much, because there's not as much tissue that I can work into, like when we're doing the spine and we're opening up those erector spinae muscles. Here, it's a very small area. If I pinch it out, you can only see that kind of side. And I have her trapezius muscles coming up and inserting. I have her sternocleidomastoids, and then her scalene muscles are a little bit more in the front side. So just say if I'm going to begin on her left side first, I'm going to take 15 minutes per side in the chair. And during that 15 minutes, this area is only like this big, guys. So I actually hop back and forth. I say at minimum twice. So for one side, you're going to see me pulling everything down and out. And then on the other side, you're going to see me pulling up and in. And I want you to hop back over for the same side at least twice on either side. If I go to do somebody's neck, like even when I worked your neck, and I worked it once and you were like, wow, the relief. And in general, I hopped back and forth probably 5 or 6 times because it was your first couple treatments, so it was pretty sensitive. So it's like, I got to give you a bit of a break, but it's not a large area to give you that much of a break. So I'm going to come around and I'm going to change my angle up. And it's like that piece of plywood that we talk about all the time. One way it's smooth and you're like, I'm not feeling so much, and then you flip around and you're like, wow, I feel way more. So you keep hopping back and forth, opening up those layers, you're gonna feel so much more embedded into that area. So I'm gonna focus on one side of her neck first, and every like 3.5 minutes, kind of just scaling down and up. And I want you, when you're working, be in that warrior stance squat, because if I stand up too vertical, my elbow just kind of wants to come over. And when I'm pulling off this side of the neck, I need a little bit more flexion. And when I'm working on this side of the neck, but I'm pulling into it from her right side, I need more extension so I can scoop into the side of more like the sternocleidomastoid area, because I don't have a long distance for my elbow to move. So I need more surface area as I elongate that, and I'll be able to scoop into it better. Once I kind of get there, you'll see. So I'm going to start on C7, and then I'm going to work up to C1 on those occipital condyles. Then I'm just coming off that occipital ledge. You're going to feel the ledge at the base of the skull, and that's going to be the kind of side of C1. And I want to be pulling off of the spine with flexion as I work my way down to C7, T1, T2 area. Then I'm going to work my way back up. Then I'm going to flip myself around, and I'm going to pull into that side of the neck.
Are you in that lamina groove again?
Yes, yes. And then I'm going to come back over, and I do it twice on either side, and that should take me about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side of the neck. Once I have finished there, then we will go to the ground and continue working the sides of the neck and coming more into the scalene muscles. But I'll get there once I demo this, if that's all good for everybody. Perfect. Okay, taking a little bit of coconut oil, making sure my hands are nice and warm and clean, and I'm beginning with that airplane landing effleurage massage to soften tissue and get her accustomed to the pressure. So I'm coming up to that occipital ledge, and I want to put some pressure around those occipital condyles, around C1 area. Once I feel like I was like nice and I warmed up that area, got her accustomed to the pressure, I am going to begin with the origin, C7. And if you're not too sure where C7 is, you get them to sit up, and then she's going to bend her neck down. And it's the vertebrae that's protruding the most, but it usually comes in line with that shoulder girdle trapezius muscle. Once I come in, you're going to feel cervical 7. She can come back down, and I'm going to begin. And when I'm working cervical 7, guys, I don't want you, remember, not too much flexion, just jumping over the spine, but you can scoop into one side, you can pull, you can pull off of the other. I want you doing both sides of cervical 7 and T1, T2 area. So I'm starting face to face, pivoting slightly face to side. Constantly playing my windshield wiper, staying in my breath, making sure my shoulders are down, and I'm doing that nice body pump technique so it's doing the work for me and I'm not just coming from shoulder strength. Because we're back in the chairs today and it's been a little bit of time, so it might be a little foreign. I want to see you kind of go into that music and dancing a little bit. So I just came over cervical 7 and I just opened up that elbow so I can scoop into the one side because I don't want to jump over the spine. After I touched on that for about a minute, that's pretty much good. So I'm going to come up to C1 and those occipital condyles. So I bring that hair up, I place my elbow, and it's a very small pinpoint work now compared to my movements when I was working on C7. I changed a little bit more to pinpoint and scaling. Playing my angles right in C1. And I know we're just touching on the origin insertion, but people can kind of get a little overzealous. Don't go too hard immediately because we're doing occiputs right after, so I don't want them to feel tender for it because we're touching on that same origin insertion area. So I touched on C1. And I'm going to work my way over to one occipital eye, which is that occipital condyle. Yeah, those little eyes on either side. You got it. And then I'm going to come across that ledge to the other one. And personally, because I'm not that tall, this chair is set up a little high right now. I'm okay because it's for the demo. I'll get up on my toes and I'll work it. But like, if you feel like that's hard for you, just like get them up, readjust the chair so that you're comfortable. Perfect. So I touched on the origin and the insertion. Now I'm starting right off that occipital ledge and I'm going to carve my way down the side of her neck, and I want more flexion when I'm standing on this side, because if I have extension, my forearm is going to kind of drag across the top of her cervical spine. And I don't want that. That feels weird. So I bring more flexion into that elbow, I tuck it in, and I'm peeling off that ledge as I work my way down the side of the neck. And there's a head right here, so my forearm can't play too much of the windshield wiper, but it can play angles. So I want like more 45-degree angles coming into that muscle belly, trying to open up those bands and strands. People who get like really bad neck tension, put the weight of the world on their shoulders, frozen shoulders, this can be attributing to that as well. As I was saying, like torticollis, dowager's hump, wry neck, hard time shoulder checking. This is going to be the area to focus, as well as upper back.
What's
Wry neck is literally if my neck's stuck like this, like it's like frozen on one side. And so but wry neck, the name for it is torticollis. Like, I'm going to do the upper back, but 30 minutes is focusing around C7. So it's like, my treatments get adjusted. Like, if somebody was like, I get really bad upper back issues and it comes into my neck, I'm not going to do the neck on the chair and the ground. I don't have time for that, and they just want to come in for that, like, one treatment. So I'm going to open up their upper back. I'm not going to do a few of these, like, moves of hands in pants, arm out to side, hands on head. I'm just going to do like kind of upper back, maybe one or two positions, and I'm going to follow up their neck like I would be starting this treatment. And I would just be kind of combining the two. Like I said, I'm teaching you guys here body part by body part. It's so cookie cutter. You can adjust stuff and kind of connect it together for specific ailments of a person.
So if you were going to combine the two, would you move them back to the ground or just do the whole thing on the chair?
That's what I was saying. I would just do a bit of the upper back, open up their upper back because they were complaining about upper back tension, and then I would continue into the neck on the chair, and that's their treatment.
Yeah, so you'd stay on the chair.
Yeah. So I feel like I worked from C1 down to C7. And I'm going to flip myself over now, facing the other side, and I'm going to scoop into her other side. And when I'm pulling into this from this direction, I want more extension. Because if I have too much flexion, you're just going to jump right over that spine. So now I extend that elbow, and it doesn't matter since I've already began if you start at C7 or if you start at C1, because it's not a long area. So you're just going to be kind of working up and down, up and down. You have 3 minutes technically per side. So that's a long time to scale against that side of the spine. So you should be kind of stripping it up and down to give them breaks in specific areas. Come a little bit up over top. See if this chair is raised down. I wouldn't have to be on my toes, but I'm fine. I don't mind. Little calf workout didn't hurt nobody. So scooping in to that side of the neck. And I'm kind of like, as my elbow, I don't want to see chicken winging, but I'm kind of pulling in and dragging up a little bit. In and dragging up, in and dragging up. It's like a slight pivot as I'm working a little bit. You're not going to get in between as much. I'm focusing more so the muscle belly right now. I am bringing it to the side of the spinous process though itself. So I do want to try to feel the bones, but I'm not trying to like get right in between them. This area, they have pretty decent mobility most of the time, and they're pretty decently spaced out. There's never too much spinal stenosis happening in this area, but I want you grinding out because we have my spinous process right here, and then my transverse process are like these guys that hang off on the either side. And I'm kind of just coming in, grinding against the side of the spine. And oh, see, if I'll just, once we finish, I'll just turn that skeleton around and I'll just show you directly on his spine after I've gone through all this. So I'm scooping in to that side of the neck.
So are you moving from where to where right now?
From C7 to C1. Yeah, I'm doing that whole strip right now. Just coming up to the ledge and back down. And it only took me, what, like 30 seconds to pretty much work all the way up that ledge. And then I'm going to work my way back down. And then you would just continue over the next little bit of time, continue working back up, back down, back up, back down. I'm going to flip myself back over one more time. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, pulling off. So more flexion once again, and scooping off.
You know, it's not good enough to have the most powerful courses, treatments, and training. We want to deliver to you the adventure of a lifetime that's going to last a lifetime. And I'm going to take you on a little adventure right now and show you what we are going to deliver. What are we